Cool. I'll kick us off then. Good. I'll begin. Yeah. Here we go. We ready?
The anticipation.
Ooh.
I'm conscious that that is the only name that we've nunned. No.
The only name that we nunned.
the only nun that we've named.
So proud of you. Dun, dun, dun. Brr, brr, meh, meh. Right, I'm good.
I'm putting that in.
That's our vocal warm-up.
Wasn't there a film where one of them was just doing vocal warm-ups and the other one started to copy them and it made it into the final cut for the film?
Come on.
That's brilliant. Hello, I'm Sister Babeushka.
And I'm Sister Alaska Lott.
And this is Utter Nunsense.
Woo! This is the show where we pour ourselves a cup of tea.
And utter whatever nonsense pops into our heads.
This is basically a really laid-back chat between a couple of friends. And you get to watch. Yay!
We upload a new video every month. So keep your eyes out for future episodes.
I just thought it was worth kind of recapping what we chatted about last time because they do link in.
Yeah, because they're quite closely related, these two topics, so makes sense.
Yeah, and so anyone who's not seen the previous episode should probably go and watch that first because that explains a lot of what we're talking about today. Because today what we're talking about is how we actually joined the Order of Perpetual Indulgence. So last episode was us talking about how we first discovered it and first impressions and explaining a little bit about what the order is. And then today's like how we ended up actually joining the order. I just did all the preamble.
I mean, I can cover the first bit. We're members of the OPI.
Oh no, I also corrected it. Wait.
We are.
This is just going to be a full episode of us laughing at each other.
It's just utter nonsense. We are members of the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, an international community of queer drag nuns.
Utterly fabulous queer drag nuns.
Spreading joy, banishing guilt, and serving the community as we go along, looking a little bit peculiar, I'd say.
Speak for yourself.
I think that's it. I mean, done in reverse, we've nailed it.
What is the normal process for joining our house? Like our routes into the order was probably not the standard, was it?
No, I don't think it was.
Our entire journey has been exceptional circumstances.
Well, last year now, it's 2 last years ago. It seemed okay in 2019.
Oh, you mean when we had white veils thrown on top of our heads before we'd had the actual ceremony so that we could walk in pride?
Yeah, okay, point taken. I suppose we're just too exceptional to go down the normal or traditional route in our house.
There's no like dead set way to do it, but the first step on that journey for becoming a sister is aspirant, and that is when people just come along because they're vaguely interested but they're not really sure. So it's not like there's no requirements at that stage. There's nothing that you have to do as such. There's no like vows or anything like that.
So much like when people go dogging in the park then, you know, pop along, have a look, and go away for one.
Precisely, yes. We've got 2 different paths that you can take, don't we? Because the sister path is the one that we've taken to become fabulous drag nuns. But we've also got the Knight's Path, and they basically go along side by side, don't they?
I think aspirants are the same in that sense, though. I think it's once you move past the aspirant in our house that you can choose whether or not it's the Knight's Path or the Sister's Path to go down. So I think everyone is supposed to start as an aspirant in a traditional way.
I don't think we've really talked about the Knight's Path before, and about henches, as they're lovingly known. What is a hench? How are they different from a sister?
The henches are the saviours of the group, in the sense that the hench is there to obviously help support the sisters, but they're also a friendly face that obviously any onlookers, if they feel too intimidated to come up to the sisters directly, there is somebody that is not covered in fabulous makeup and refinery to sort of talk to and get to know a little bit more about what's happening. And yet henches are there to help with managing, carrying all the stuff that we take with us. You know, they look after us, make sure we're hydrated. Yeah, they're just all-round saviours, I think. Knights
in shining armour. It's a role that does kind of change depending on where in the world you are. So I know that we, particularly in Scotland, we're calling them henches or knights. But in other places, I've heard them called things like guards. And in other countries, sometimes they do wear the makeup as well, which is interesting.
In our house, both sisters and knights would start off at aspirant. And then what's the next stage that we move on to, Alaska?
If you know that you're going for the sister path, the next logical step would be postulant, which is where you first start being a sister. So you do get some headgear, and you get like white face makeup starts to be a thing if you want to do that. It's not necessary in our house. But I actually know quite a few people who started as henches and then switched to the sister path. They became a hench so that they would go along to the events, but they didn't have to worry about all of this stuff. They were just there in a supporting role. And then as they found out more from that, they then switched across.
Obviously, we'll touch more on it in a bit when we're talking about our own journeys with the order. But I think it makes sense that would sometimes be a way in for people, because I think the idea of dressing up as we have and as we do out in public can probably be a bit daunting for some people, depending on their disposition. And so coming along as a hench to sort of gain that confidence and that understanding does seem like a sensible choice for some.
The first time that we were expected to put on makeup and headgear and stuff, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing, and we could probably do like a whole episode just chatting about our first manifest as sisters. But yeah, that was a really daunting process. I would probably recommend henching at one event before doing a sister thing, so that they can just see what it's about and watch sisters in action a bit more before they actually have to try and do it. It would have eased me in so much more.
Yes, I think there's something to be said for sitting on the sidelines for a little bit to get to know situations a bit more. Well, bringing a bucket of lube, that'll ease anything in.
And I'm sure like every person will be different. Like there'll be people who are super confident that can just go for it and they'll have no bother at all. I just know that I'm one of these people that gets really nervous and anxious about stuff. So it definitely, looking back, I should have hinged an event first. Last episode, you mentioned that you had been asked if you were interested in joining. Is that right?
Yeah, so before I'd officially decided to join and everything like that, there had been one instance where I'd been hanging out with Sister Anne in a different capacity, because we were both involved in a different group at the time, and they'd sort of offhandedly talked about the sisters and mentioned, I think you'd make a really good sister in that. Although it was nice to be sort of asked or thought about of maybe joining, I wasn't in the space or had the availability for it at that time. So yeah, I'd previously been, if not asked, sort of given this sort of nudge to think about it. Yeah. So helpful nudges. How about yourself, Alaska? I think you got more than one sort of nudge or two from people.
I think I did, yeah. My journey into the order was probably slightly more normal than yours, because it sounds like for you, you had a nudge and it didn't nudge you far enough. And then there was nothing until you actually, the day you joined. Whereas I definitely hung around a little bit more, like a bad smell. I had definitely been asked about, would you ever consider joining? I think you might be good. And I had done similar. Wasn't in the right space. I was, really busy. I didn't have enough capacity or, head capacity. So I said, I'm way too busy, but, maybe one day. And that was probably my mistake, because I left it open to, maybe later. And because some of my close friends were sisters, I ended up going along to a couple of their events. I did go along to a couple of elevations. And I'm sure I went to just one nuncheon as well, because my friend happened to be in town and going to the nuncheon. So I just went along because I wanted to hang out with them. But every time I went along to these events, they kept referring to me as a hench, even though I had done absolutely nothing.
We're just trying to say wench every time. That's all they were saying.
Definitely a wench. Yeah. Hench wench. I suppose I was quite lucky that I got to see a couple of elevations, so I knew a little bit more about the fact that Polari was being used in the ceremonies done in our house. I started to understand a little bit more about the different steps that you go through on that journey, and I got to see a variety of people dressed as drag nuns and get to know them a little bit more. And one of the ones that I went to even had some visitors from an American house, which was really exciting. I still have like photos that I took at those events and things. So it was almost like I was an aspirant, I suppose. I was there finding out a bit more without even really realizing that that's what I was doing. So I suppose it was only inevitable that eventually I would move further down that path.
Just like gravity pulling you in slowly.
Yep.
See, gate crashing pays off.
The day we ended up joining was the same day, wasn't it? And probably came as a surprise to both of us.
Given our reactions at the time, I think we were both taken a little bit aback. Yeah.
It was not what we'd planned to do that day.
Cast your mind back to a world where you could meet with people in crowds and not worry about masks or temperatures or anything like that.
Oh,
crazy time, I know. Oh God, to think I'd miss gatherings of like loads of people.
Not sure that I do. I miss seeing individual people that I like, but I don't miss mass people. I'm okay staying at home.
Yep, I get you on that. It was sort of late 2018 when both you and I were involved in another organisation that was having a sort of open meeting for its volunteers to go along and find out more about what was happening. And so, yeah, I think we both went along to sort of be involved in that in the various roles that we'd set out for ourselves. And then obviously within that social circle, there was obviously a couple of sisters that were involved in the Edinburgh house. And so, yeah, that was the scene. You know, we both went there independent of thinking of joining the sisters that morning. And we were solely focused on this one organisation, and then we were accosted by one of the sisters, I'd say.
Do you know, I think there was a bit of a devious planning session happened without our knowledge, because there were a number of sisters who were there anyway, not in a sisterly capacity, and decided this was the plan for the day. We're going to acquire ourselves 2 new members. I think there was 3 of them there, wasn't there? And they were all present for our official joining of the order.
Sneaky. So they just grabbed 2 people and it happened to be us.
No, I think they were quite deliberate in which people they chose. And once they decided on the plan, they just swung into action. And in a crowd of, I mean, there must have been hundreds of people in that hall, and they sought us out and lynched us, basically, in the most loving way possible.
I think we probably made it a little bit easy because we were sort of standing next to each other chatting, I think, at the point. So they found us pretty easily after that. It's their own fault, wasn't it?
When they asked us to come with them, we didn't even question it, I think. We just went, oh, okay.
Well, that's what happened at those meetings when you could have them in person. You'd just be taken left, right around the room. You wouldn't think.
Yeah, they came up to us and asked us to follow them. And we were dragged to the middle of the room where I think there was a table set up, wasn't there? And there was the other two sisters were there. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the first thing they said to us was, tell us why you want to join the sisters. They just jumped straight in there.
I think the sister that had grabbed us had went, here we go, I've got them both. And then it was pretty much launching straight into the hard questions of it all. And it was like, what?
Yeah, and that is like one of the standard bits for joining, certainly our house, is at the point that someone's about to become a postulant, they're asked why. Why do you want to join? Tell us. And we obviously hadn't planned anything. We were just thinking on our feet.
It's kind of hard to have an answer to that question when you don't know what's going to come at you at that time. I remember standing there like, what?
I think the best bit is that even though we were both surprised, neither of us resisted. There was obviously that part of us that actually did want to. And I think that they'd seen in us that we were interested enough and we just needed a bit of a help to get that out of us. So when they asked us why, instead of saying no, we told them why.
Well, I think you told them why. I distinctly remember trying to flip the question back, like, why did you drag me here? You must have seen something you wanted me.
Did you end up giving a reason for why you wanted to join then?
I believe I did end up giving a reason, but it was just because the question was so out of the blue, and I was like, what? That I had to sort of buy myself a little bit extra time by going, why did you want me to come? And then sort of figuring out, yeah, I'm not opposed to this. I'm just like, why did you pick me? What's going on? Meanwhile, you dealt with it a bit better than I did, I think.
To be fair, so I knew a little bit more because I'd basically been doing the aspirant thing without realising it, but I didn't know how you got from aspirant to postulant. I didn't actually know the term aspirant existed. I'm not sure I knew that postulant existed either. Did I maybe answer first then?
I think I tried to kick away so that I went as last as possible.
And I remember I probably prattled on for a fair bit, actually. I talked a lot about activism and wanting to do more activism and stand up for people's rights and things. But I did witter on a bit.
I'm not going to complain. The more you talked, the more time I had to think and catch up to everything.
I ended up off on tangents talking about like different activist things I'd done in the past and how as a student I lay down in the middle of the road to stop the war.
I know your answer was very thorough, and then I come along like, yeah, I want to serve the community and like make sure everyone's protected and stick up for rights that have been hard fought won. So I probably seemed like really quick and glib compared to, a passionate speech given by yourself.
I feel like your answer was actually more along, like it was almost exactly what the principles are for the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, like serving the community and stuff like that. You hit the nail on the head. That's
why they picked me out of the crowd then. They were like, oh, they can do it. Yeah, we'll get them then.
I think after we said why, they kind of did a and then went, yeah, they'll do. And then the next question was, what are your names going to be? And neither of us managed to give a proper answer at that. I uttered some profanity in my shock because I couldn't think of anything, and that ended up being my name for a while. And I think you were much more considered, weren't you?
So whereas you got the profanity name, I was like, oh, can I have time to think about this? And like, oh, I don't know. Because obviously at that moment in time, my thinking was, oh, I don't want to pick a name that I'm going to be stuck with, for years down the line. I don't want to be, Miss Liza Sugar Tits for the rest of her damn life. and then
It's a beautiful name, darling.
Of course, it's a beautiful name, but I don't think it's me. It belongs to somebody much better than me for that name.
There's no one better.
Thankfully, the sister that was there that was eventually going to become my mother, they'd mentioned that there was a sister name creation Facebook page, so that there was a place where people were sharing sort of different names or puns that might become a name. And so that gave me a chance to sort of go away after that meeting and actually think about it rather than just being on the spot. Because I much prefer having a little bit of time to think about it beforehand.
Yeah, I totally wish that I'd thought about it more.
Your name was so good. It was so good.
There were definite benefits to the name. Like, I loved how it would make people laugh. But there were drawbacks as well. And we'll do like a separate episode on drag names and our names, because neither of us have the name that we started with. We actually changed them later on. But I think it's a great discussion topic in itself. It was fun for a while. I feel more comfortable with the name I have now.
Same. I think the name that I picked for my postulant and novice journey was definitely suited at the time. But yeah, having a different name and knowing that I can change the name.
I spent so long trying to think of what my name should change to, because I had put no thought whatsoever into my first name. I was going to make damn sure that I was going to think through my next name.
And then now we're here.
Now we're here. And I mean, that's just the kind of first step in the journey, really, isn't it? And I say the first step, there's aspirant before that. It's the first proper step where you are learning how to become a sister or learning how to become a hench/knight.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting that we didn't have a very conventional start. And I think as we go through our sister journey with everyone, you'll see that we didn't always have a conventional journey at all, really. They just can't contain our uniqueness, darling. We're just too fabulosa.
I think that with each person that joins the order, they bring something different. They bring their own knowledge and their own skills and their own passions. Yeah, part of us being unconventional is our journey's been slightly different to perhaps other people, but also we've brought in kind of questions about how we do things and why we do things that way and how we can do things differently, which I think has actually been much needed during 2020, certainly, because everyone had to reevaluate how we do everything.
Yay!
That was a bundle of laughs.
The year no one will ever forget. Christ.
Do you remember when we thought 2019 was the worst year ever because all the famous people kept dying?
Like, yeah, 2019 wasn't great, but I never thought it was the worst year ever. I mean, it was sad for sure, but
I think the lesson is never think that it's as bad as it could be, because it could always be worse. It could always be better too, but yeah, let's not pin all our hopes on 2021 just yet.
God, message of joy and sunlight here.
I mean, there were certainly joyful things that happened in 2020. There were a lot of not joyful things, but there were nice parts of that journey as well. We did some nice stuff with the sisters. We did elevate, so we went through a later part of the process. It could have been worse. I mean, it could have been a whole lot better.
Could have been many things.
It could have been, but it wasn't.
I mean, it was a bit of a deviation from joining OPI.
Surely this is this information that people want to know, that the public needs to know. They come here for this useful advice, life advice. Alaska's life hacks. Don't go outside. Don't touch your eyes.
What can the people do? Is there anything else more that we want to say on joining the OPI?
Is there? You should do it.
Do it, do it, do it.
On reflection, so I know that we hadn't planned to join that day, and the way that we joined was a bit unconventional. But on reflection, are you glad that you did?
I mean, I'll have to say yes for the sake of the video, right? Yeah, I am glad that I joined, and you know, I'm also glad the circumstances of me joining were what they were, so that I had somebody that was going through the same steps as me, if not for all of it, at least for the beginning part. So that made it feel less daunting after being singled out in a hall of hundreds. How about yourself?
Yeah, I am glad that I joined. Obviously, we've both stuck around for a while now. It was the right choice at the end of the day. I too am really glad that I joined at the same time as someone else, so I wasn't the only new person. It was really nice having someone else new to share that beginning journey with and share the nervousness with. And I'm really lucky that the person who happened to join at the same time as me was one of my closest friends, which is even better.
Yeah, thank you. Same, likewise. Yeah, dignity, composure.
We have had people join after us in our house as well, and they joined at the same time as well. So I think they probably had a shit.
Yeah, the shit.
They probably had a similar experience of having someone else to hold on to in that beginning journey. We felt like we were going through a lot of this together as a foursome. Foursomes are great fun. The more people, the more fun.
It was great. Best foursome yet. But yeah, I think we definitely touch on our sort of first manifestation together at another point and go more in depth with that, and obviously explain more about what it was like to go through as a foursome, the postulant journey. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm a snake.
I'm a slithery little snake.
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 Oh, what was the snake song we were singing earlier? Oh, I wish I could remember the tune. While we were manifesting, and I was just like, I'm a snake, and like, don't put me in your pants or something. And then you come up with
Yes.
I can't remember the tune.
It was such a good song.
It was brilliant. #1 hit this year, I bet you.
Did you see that LiQWYD got their third consecutive #1, Christmas #1? You're looking at me like you've got no idea who they are. So, okay, there's this YouTuber guy called, his channel name is LiQWYD, and it's basically just this dude he's really daft. He comes up with lots of ridiculous life hacks that are actually kind of genius. His wife and kids are always involved, and she ends up laughing hysterically every time. And the dynamic between them is great. Anyway, so 3 years ago, for raising money for the Trussell Trust, they decided that they were going to create a Christmas single and actually try and get people to buy it, because all the money was going to charity. And amazingly, they created a daft song about sausage rolls at Christmas, released the single, and they got #1.
Nice.
And then in 2019, they decided, right, we'll do one more. We're going to do a second one. And they did another song about sausage rolls. This time they were like, right, let's try and get Christmas #1 again. And it seemed impossible because only 2 acts had ever managed to get 2 years in a row Christmas #1s. And it's people like the Beatles. And then to everyone's surprise, they got Christmas #1 a second year in a row. So they became the third ever act to actually manage that. And then this year they weren't going to do it. And then it was like 3 weeks before Christmas or something. They suddenly went, oh, do you know, let's just do one more. Another song about sausage rolls. And they got #1. They knocked Mariah Carey off the top spot.
Ah, I've just Wikipedia'd them. They're only the third act to secure 3 consecutive Christmas numbers following the Beatles and the Spice Girls. 1 million subscribers and everything.
There you go.
Oh, never heard of them before. How? That's cool. Oh. I might have to check out these songs just for the laugh now.
We built this city. We built this city on sausage rolls.
Oh, I have heard it then. Oh, I've heard that. I've heard it. I've just not realised who it was then. Okay. Oh.
Yeah. I was like totally over the moon for them when I found out that they'd won Christmas #1 again, particularly because this year there's been so many more people having to use food banks and really, really struggling during the pandemic. And so it felt like, I mean, it was an important thing that they were doing before, but this year particularly so.
That's amazing, especially to do it, in such an important year.
Good on them. I hope they come back next year and do it again.
Maybe we should ask if we can join them. We'll help boost, with our 2 subscribers, we'll totally boost it, right?
Oh, we agreed we needed a 3rd subscriber because the first 2 would be us. Anyway, that was a total deviation from everything.
I think, yeah, but that's what the nature of utter nonsense is supposed to be, right?
It's just us uttering random nonsense as it occurs to us.
Damn right. Yeah, let's wrap up then. Sorry, I was looking at the topic names here, and then one of them's just touching the community.
Why did I call one of them touching the community? Jesus.
But I love it. Recap. Where'd you get my kneecaps? We'll cut that out. Not the kneecap, just that bit.
This is a really weird tangent, right? I googled it. Babies don't have kneecaps for the first so many weeks of their life. They just don't have kneecaps. And they've got a squidgy head. They're weird.
There's a reason I don't want them near me. They're just too squishy. Just to recap, so again, let's try. Right. So obviously, so yeah, I think, it was very interesting following on from our discussion last month about the order to then figure out how we both sort of slowly inched our way towards the order, some being more involved than others, and basically being an aspirant without being an aspirant, while others sort of hung back and then were suddenly lassoed in, as it were. So I thought it was really interesting to hear those different perspectives this week, and then sort of seeing how 2 different paths merged into one.
Yeah, it actually sounds like we've had quite a different kind of initial introduction, as it were. After first finding out who the Order of Perpetual Indulgence were, that initial path has been quite different for both of us. I feel really bad that you were dropped in it much more than I was. I at least had some idea of what was going on.
And now all those confused looks at the beginning make sense. Yeah, I think, it was really interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of differences. And I think from there on out, our journeys became a lot more sort of intertwined, I think. So, when we touch on those in later episodes down the line, I think people will be a bit like, okay, we get it, guys, you did the same things.
So I guess we should just say thank you to everyone who's watched this episode, and hopefully you found it interesting and, if not informative, at least amusing.
Always amusing, always.
And we have plans for next episode as well, don't we? What are we going to talk about next time?
So next time, instead of necessarily talking about us and what we've been doing with the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, we're going to sit down and have a little chat around sort of diversity within drag, both looking at, what that means in the Order of Perpetual Indulgence, but also looking at sort of broader artists within the drag community, and sort of just having that look at how gender plays into that.
I think it's going to be a really interesting topic to chat around, actually, because there's such a preconception of drag queens, and that's what's been in the media so much. But there are so many other styles and variations in drag. I mean, it's really incredible when you start looking into it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. It's going to be good.
So good. It'll be a bumper episode. It'll be an hour long. It'll be great. Just because there's so much to talk about in it, I think, you know, it's really one of those really in-depth topics that we could probably get lost in for the whole day.
We should also remind people that you can find us on other social media platforms, and we will put links and places that people can find them so they can check our other socials. And if you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified when we upload the next month's episode as well. That's us. We did the thing.
We did the thing.
We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. We did the thing. Who needs outro music when we could just sing it?